I'm Eli, and I make games. So for this episode of Feedback Friday, the 13th one, I'm covering a game made by 3 game devs, but it's actually 5. Well, 4. Well, yeah, it's 4 games. So there's Blackthornprod, the team of 2, and then there's Jonas Tyroller and Jan, who made a game for Ludum Dare 48 called Going Down in Fishstory. Oh boy, don't you just love the puns? So for this one, I will be covering the faults, my praises for the game, and just what I thought about the game. And yeah, let's get into it. So let's start with the faults, and then move on to the praises. So for one, immediately it was very clear. The tutorial felt like really just slow. You'd hit a cutscene, move a bit, but you hit another cutscene almost immediately, and then you hit another, and another, and another, until you finally get into the gameplay, and it just felt slow, and it really just ruined the beginning of the game and the first impression, which made me go, wow, this game's gonna suck. I don't want to play it anymore if I don't even get to play the game. And really, that's kind of the problem with the cutscenes. The cutscenes slow down the gameplay way more than they really have the right to. The gameplay is fine and it works, but then you hit a cutscene and you can't even move, but you have some control, but not enough to the point where it's just like, really? And you see the cutscenes, and I think all you'd have to really do is maybe spice it up with a bit of graphics. Just add a bit of a vignette or something whenever you hit a cutscene and reduce, because once you get to like the actual game, when you hit a cutscene, it happens and then you're done, and it's fine, but it still slows down the gameplay because it still feels like you're in gameplay, but you're not, if that makes sense. So adding something like a vignette effect would really help it, but the tutorial felt a little ugh. So if you were to improve the tutorial definitely, or at the very least space out the cutscenes between the tutorial, so then it feels a little more cohesive. Then my other fault is that, like, the story is kind of unclear until the end. It's, oh, we're fish and we're going places. So you kind of just keep going down, you keep playing, you see story beats happening, you don't understand it, and then you get to the end, which is not really a spoiler, but you get to like kind of like this happy place, and it's the end. You don't know that you're going to the happy place until you get there. And so the story's kind of unclear. It's just little things happening, but they don't add up. They don't hit towards anything. They don't tell you remotely, hey, we need to get down there because there's something really good down there. Now, it might have happened and I just didn't notice, but it just kind of felt unclear. Especially, there's that boss that happens, and you get to it, and you kill it. But why? It's like, it just felt kind of like, what happened? I did it, and okay, I'm going. It was more like just a big wall, if anything, which really, and it didn't even feel like a boss. It felt more like, oh, okay, hit it 3 times, kill it, move on. And it's not that hard. It's all it is more of a precision challenge. It doesn't work well as a boss. Now, if you added more things to it, then it would work better. What does work better as a boss is those big shark things. If there was a way to kill those, that might have been a good boss, but that's not the case. Now it's time for the mandatory fun fact of the day. So this time, the fun fact, it's more of just, I noticed this and I kind of looked into it more. It's like, wow, okay, cool. So I've always known that birds are classified as reptilia, or the reptilian family, because people always are like, oh, they come from dinosaurs and stuff. But I always wondered, how? It's like, you look at a T-Rex and then you look at a bird and they don't look alike. So I looked into it, and it's actually, they're not dinosaurs directly. They actually linked from theropods, which are just really, really, really ancient birds. So theropods are things like the pterodactyl, except eventually they started to grow feathers. But they're still theropods, and those ones that started to become somewhat bird-like, kind of feathery attributes and stuff like that, that's what birds derive from. They do come from things like a pterodactyl, but that's way before they can really be considered bird-esque. You get traits from that. But on that note, there's just some other neat things about it, like 100 traits actually can be traced back to these theropods. Things like their feathers, the shape of their head, how their wings are built, their bones. These all come from the theropods. It's just a neat thing about evolution is how it came from a big theropod thing, and it's a bird now. But these theropods, they were still classified as dinosaurs, which are part of reptilia, meaning birds are actually classified as reptilia. Now, funnily enough, the scientist that studies reptiles doesn't study birds, even though they're part of reptilia, but nonetheless. And that was today's fun fact of the day. Now moving on to your scheduled video. Woo! Now it's time to get into praises. The art is really good. As with any Blackthornprod game, Noah, and I'm also assuming Liam, but it's probably Noah is just really good art. It has a distinct style. It uses silhouettes really well, but it's bursting with color. And the backgrounds always look nice as they're abstract, and they really just add life to the world. The animations, they look fluent, and they just looked fun. The color palette was good. I like it. It could have been better, but the oranges, the blues, and the blacks, they blend really well together, added things like pinks and purples, and it's awesome. It could be better. I would say some sort of lighter green or something like that would maybe have added to the color palette, but the color palette is still good nonetheless. And then also, the controls feel nice and they're pretty easy to learn. They're not the best controls in the world, and there might be better control systems for this type of game, but it really worked well. It's intuitive, and because you can always use just the mouse, it makes it easier for people to kind of learn, because you're only dealing with 2 buttons and where the mouse is. That's really easy for people to learn, and it's nice. The dashing mechanic, where you just go faster, that always is fun. Initially, I will say, I thought you could only just do it like in a burst, like you just click and it just does a burst and that's all you could do. But then when I accidentally held it down, I found out you could do that. That was the fun part, when I was like, wow. But overall, controls, they're good. And also the level design, it feels nice, and it is just good. The level design, it's kind of crazy, it kind of goes all over the place, but it narrows down in places to add emphasis to the claustrophobicness of it, or to emphasize different emotions in a kind of a way, by showing how wide the area is or how small it is, or the shape of the room. It kind of adds to the gameplay. And also, on that note, I like how the respawn works. I was wondering how respawn works before I died, because initially I was thinking the only way I would ever think of doing this is completely restarting the level, but that would be bad. But how would you do this? And then when I kind of went back to the game and I just started analyzing the level design, I noticed how there's like the pockets, and those pockets are where you respawn back to. And that's nice. That works well, and it's fluid. You'll never notice it until it happens. So that's a good thing. It shows that the game is fluid and it's progressive, and it's not being obvious about these very game mechanic-y things. It's like when you see a checkpoint in Mario, you know you're gonna go back there, and it's not very seamless. But when you just get to an area that the camera just dynamically moved over to, and it was just nice and fluent, you're never gonna know it until that happens. It's like when you're playing Celeste, one of my favorite games of all time. when you die, you know exactly where you're gonna go because it's by that screen. But in this game, because of how the dynamic respawn works, it just works nice, and I like it. And that's all my praises. So overall, the game, good, amazing art, controls nice, levels design is pretty good, and I like how the respawn system works. I will say, tutorial, longer than needed. The cutscenes slow down the gameplay way more than they should, and the story is kind of unclear to the end. But it's kind of jumbled together into a satisfying and good end product that deserves the praise that it's getting. But as a game jam game, it has multiple faults, way more than I've said, but I pulled out the big ones that I noticed and ones that most people are probably not going to say, other than the cutscenes, which, I'm being honest, that kind of was jarring at the beginning. And yeah, so if you like, if you don't, still like, and subscribe. Peace.